Diabetes. Well, diabetes. You ever see that guy, that actor? He said diabetes. And they have it's a joke meme anyway. Well, I mean, all of these disease names are just fancy names for chronic inflammation, nutritional deficiency, and toxicity issues. I mean, we really can just dump the label, right? But really, we have organ system exhaustion at this stage. And it depends on which aspect of the organ is affected that produces the symptoms, right? There's alpha, beta, there's different cells and tissues in the pancreas, for example, that do different behaviors that produce different things. So there's different subtypes. We're obviously talking about diabetes type 2, not so much type 1, but typically in the elderly, they get the LADA, which is like a type 3. More of a type 3 or a mix of the two types. So again, then it gets all label-like, which is sort of besides the point. Really what you want to look at is what symptoms are you expressing, right? Which is going to tell you where your deficiencies are and is going to tell you what's happening in your body and what adaptations your body's trying to make to cope with the deficiency situation and the buildup. And the blockages too, right? That's with all of the 10 that we're going through. We're using the labels, we're using a system here out of 10, but if you really break it down, it's a much simpler line of thinking than, I have this disease, because people's minds get stuck on the diagnosis. And then the mind begins to produce the reality around that diagnosis. And if you want to really heal from these things, you have to detach the ego from the identity of this disease label. Mm-hmm. And so if you think of it more like there's just toxicity, I have issues with glucose handling, which is an energy source, and I'm depleted. My minerals are depleted. My body's not able to process the glucose, not able to use insulin appropriately, which is what drives the glucose and knocks on the door of the cell and says, hey, you want me? Come in, right? It can't, there's no communication there. And also there's glucagon in insulin. Glucagon is the one that takes the sugar back out and puts it into energy. And then, right? So there's a reciprocal relationship and feedback relationship there that's not working, which means you got hormone problems. Okay. Right. So because these are all hormones, these are all aspects of communication, which means your liver is not working properly, which means your blood is not where it should be at, right? All of those aspects are going to be affected with the diabetes situation. And when you get older and these organ systems are getting worn out and you're not producing hormones properly and your diet is full of, simple carbs, white ash sugar, diet pops or false sugars, which is very confusing to the body. Is it sugar or not sugar? Can I use it for fuel or not fuel? It's I need sugar, I need fuel. Oh, it's that. Oh, it's aspartame. I can't use that. Yeah. Get the hell away, right? Yeah. And so imagine this thing comes knocking at the door and it's yeah, okay, I see you knocking, but you can't come in, right? Because you're not a real energy source. So that just circulates, creates a total chaos, havoc in your communication. And now you got to go and figure out another way of getting the glucose. So you're going to crave fat or you're going to crave actual sugar, right? So it's why are you drinking the fake stuff? So you can lose weight? What does that even make? That doesn't even make any sense. You're not going to lose weight. The people who take diet anything are not looking diety. They're not
have weight gain.
Okay. Are usually the heaviest people you see. Okay. Also causes brain damage too. So that doesn't help. But those are all scammy. Anything that's diet or an alternative sugar or synthetic sugar should be crossed off any list, and whether you have diabetes or not. And it can create a diabetic situation because then the body doesn't know how to use its own fuel. Okay. So people can argue this is a metabolic dysfunction, but people can argue it all over the map. However, what's the cause? What's the whatever? It's actually kind of irrelevant. Mm-hmm. It's irrelevant. You're going to want to fix the digestive organs in general. So what are you eating? And what are you ingesting in general in your life? your stress levels, what your eyes watch, what your ears hear, what your mouth takes in. All of those things, all those factors play into our health, no matter what the disease label is.
And what you're saying to yourself.
What you're saying to yourself, exactly. What you believe about yourself, what's on repeat in the tapes, right? Yeah. And yeah, like diabetics can have circulatory issues. Well, why? Well, because the endocrine organs aren't functioning properly, and the liver is one of the major endocrine glands of the body, and it can't filter the blood properly, and it can't get the wastes, which insulin can be overdone. Like if you have circulating insulin with no glucose to talk to, right? So say you take a false sugar and then insulin comes in, like gets activated thinking it's going to have sugar and then it doesn't come. Well, insulin can cause chronic inflammation, which can cause tissue damage, usually to the nerves, right? And so then they get like, they can't feel their feet and then they can't feel their legs, and then they get the diabetic ulcer, which is when you cannot feed and fuel the nerve, right? It cannot feed the dermatome. It cannot support the skin. That all starts to break down. You step on a nail, you step on a tack, you step on glass, you step on whatever. You don't know, right? You don't know what you've done. That's why they have chiropodists. They have places that diabetics go just to make sure that they don't have cuts on their feet, right? Because they can't feel their feet. They're not losing circulation. We talked earlier in hypertension, right? The blood has to be pushed. The blood has to be forced into the microvessels, into the brain, into the smaller vessels of the organs. It has to go there, or else those areas die because you can't deliver oxygen, you can't deliver nutrients, you can't take away waste. So it has to force it. Well, it's the same thing going on here, just a different area, right, of the legs primarily starts there. So solution-wise, like, you're going to want to clean up your lifestyle. I know. Shocker. But like, here's some ideas. Here's a few that are out there that are more common. You can even find studies on this stuff. It's, there are dosages you can find online. So Berberine is one such supplement that can be used. It improves the insulin sensitivity. So that sensitivity can be a little more receptive, right? It's just helping that insulin's a hormone. It's helping that hormone kind of go, hey, like, hello, pay attention. That's what that does. Gymnema, that's helpful. Gymnema sylvestre, you can use as a tincture. It's actually helpful for pancreatic support. And for someone who has cravings, for someone who so if there's cravings, there's deficiency. So the body's calling for something. Okay. And now sometimes there's addiction and it's not really it's a mixed signal because it's a habitual, up and down flow of sugar, right? Because you usually with simple sugars, you get a high, like a drug, and then you get a crash. And then you're like, I feel like crap. I want that high again, chasing the dragon with the sugar. Okay. Yeah. So Gymnema is good for that kind of situation, but understand that if you're on that roller coaster, then you want complex carbs, you want proteins and fats. So I'd rather you cook a steak, okay, than eat a bag of potato chips or have ice cream or any of that crap, right? So, because at least you're going to get sustained, slow, integrative food rather than this quick hit, quick spike, insulin floods, what's going on, yo? Like everything's panicky. And then you crash hard. And then, when you're fatigued, what are you going to go for? You go for quick hits of like caffeine or sugar or some stimulant, right? Like this is a stimulant world. And you keep hitting the stimulants, you burn yourself out. And that's for dopamine or whatever we're calling that, yep. With the scrolling and all that stuff. You keep hitting the same ping, yep. You're going to burn it out. It's not an endless supply. All right. Yeah. We got bitter melon. That's you can take it as a tea and it is bitter, or any of the digestive bitters are really supportive for diabetic situations because oftentimes the gut itself is a mess and the secretions are not working properly. So when you take digestive bitters or any of these bitter elements, from a Chinese medicine perspective, you're going to secrete well, you're going to start secreting, like even lemon water. I mean, for gosh sake, get up in the morning and boil some water, put half a teaspoon of baking soda in that hot water, like a tea, maybe like half a cup to a cup of water. Drink that. and then squeeze some lemon in some cold water and drink that right after. Like that's going to do more for your diabetes than any of these metformins or any of these stupid drugs that are going to actually contribute to the degradation of those organ systems. Cinnamon, Ceylon cinnamon is the one that is very well loved for diabetes because it helps with glucose metabolism. And I mean, there's a huge...
It's a bit like insulin, doesn't it?
It does. It has insulin-like behaviors. So it helps your body actually use the glucose properly. Because like I said, when insulin is extra, it causes problems. But when glucose is extra, it also causes problems. So if there's no insulin to take the floating glucose, it can cause disturbances in the tissue. But so either of them, they need to be paired. Yep. So if one's more than the other in any ratio, you got problems. You got chronic inflammatory issues and tissue damage. And then the body has to use resources to fix the tissue. Yep. If you don't have those resources, you get degradation, then you get the legs, then you get the ulcers, then you get the nerve damage, etc. And we talked about refined carbs, sugars is a big fat no. I mean, that's a big fat no for anybody, for the whole world. Okay. It's not just diabetics, but like you want sustained nourishment. You could go into more of a ketogenic lifestyle where you're using fat as fuel rather than sugar as fuel. That does seem to work for a lot of these situations, even type 1.
I interviewed a guy who had been diagnosed as type 1 something like 10 or 15 years ago and completely manages it with diet.
It can be totally managed with diet. I've had a few cases of type 1, we got them off their insulin injection, which I find makes over time causes some mental aberrations. Yeah. Like it's hard to communicate.
Anything that's not self is going to cause problems in the end down the track because your body has to recognize it as not self.
Exactly. And there's always going to be an adaptation to a suppression, which the drugs do. But also the drugs have what is this side effect? What is this even, right? Yeah. Well, that's because it's pushing, like say you go, okay, well, in diabetes, we have insulin not regulated. Okay, we're going to force insulin to do a thing. Okay. But it's myopic because it actually has like multiple different roles in the body. And you're just looking at it from the one thing it does, right? And so now you take a drug, which is like a gun and a bullet saying, go do it or else, right? And it can't be nuanced anymore. It can't do all the other roles it does or all the other behaviors it does, right? So it's very linear thinking, the pharmaceutical drug ideology, right? Because the side effects now are what it would have done in all the other things that it was doing, it cannot do. So now you're having all these other weird symptoms, right? And now you have to control that with trying to stop the adaptation of the side effect of the thing that it couldn't do, that it needs to do. Is a terrible snowball effect here. So not needed. And most people, like not most, but I've seen the majority of true type 2s have weight issues. I mean, if you're overweight, okay, then you're unhealthy. You're not healthy. I'm sorry. Like if you're beyond the 10-pound flexibility, right? Because like in winter, I pack on 10 pounds. Mm-hmm. I feel it's a normal adaptation to the environment. Yeah. But
I do about 7 or 8 myself. It comes off in the summer.
Yeah, like I'm about to shed, about 10 pounds going into my spring, summer now. Normal for me. But I'm talking about not that. I'm talking about, it's when you have to get up, you're having a hard time breathing because there's a lot of extra weight, a lot of extra meat on your bones. That's not healthy. That's going to put a strain on your heart. And people who have diabetes have higher rates of heart disease, right? Aortic problems, right? So if you have a heavy gut, if you're overweight more than, 10, 15 pounds, really, then that's your priority, is working that down. Fasting, hydrating, enemas, going for walks, exercising, whatever you can do. Even if you can't get out of the chair, then move your arms, then breathe. You have to move your body. Like I just saw a case today, a sad case of a husband, wife. The wife went in for heart surgery. Big mistake right there. Like as soon as I hear, she went in for heart surgery, I'm like, well, that you should be able to avoid heart surgery. And heart surgery is not some miracle cure. No. I mean, the rates of loss, like people don't look at the statistics of death of these things. Okay. She comes home from her surgery. Everything seems to be fine. Okay. They're having conversations, they're laughing, they're, going along with their life. Well, then she all of a sudden, a couple days later, stops breathing, heart rate's not working, dies. Okay. But when you look at the picture of her, she's obese.
Yeah.
She's obese. So who in their right mind, okay, this is the criminality part now of the medical cartel. The fact that they don't say to you, look, you're fat. You gotta lose weight. Like, your heart problem is your body. So let's put you on an exercise program. Let's give you a personal trainer, right? With the tax dollars. Let's help you with your diet, with your lifestyle, not poisoning yourself, etc. And let's help you through this. And then you don't need to go through any surgery. So I could see it immediately just in her body shape that that was her problem. Not having some sort of somebody cutting something or bypassing anything or valving anything. That wasn't going to help her,
One other thing you mentioned, by the way, I remember a while back when you were talking about arthritis, was cold water marching to help with the neuropathy, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So for maintenance, like as you're trying to heal everything and you're trying to prevent, secondary problems, cold water marching, you got to do it, where you're holding properly because you don't want to wipe out. But if you have the bar, on the tub or something, where you can hold on or somebody can help you, like hold you, then you fill the tub with like really cold water, put some ice in it if you can. And you march for, as much as you can handle it. We used to do this in Germany, actually. In Germany, they would naturally have, they probably still do, but they're like walking pools. So you go down some steps and then you walk through ice cold spring water and then you come out the other side for your legs, for circulation. And you just slowly walk through. It only takes a few minutes. So this is the same kind of idea. We're using hydrotherapy as cold to stimulate circulation, because short cold will encourage the blood to go there to warm it up, right?
Yeah. Not Wim Hof cold, short cold.
Yes, not Wim Hof cold. That can be exhausting to kidneys. So you definitely don't want to do that in diabetic conditions. It's actually contraindicated. So short cold's fine, and short cold only on a section that you're trying to draw blood. But the thing is, like, you do want to draw blood, but you should hydrate first, because what if you're blood deficient and you're drawing blood from the heart? So even if you're doing cold water marching, you should be hydrated. You probably should take some magnesium and a cod liver oil, to lubricate, to make your blood volume up. Take a tea, something, before you do the cold water march or the contrast hydrotherapy with the 3 minutes hot, 30 seconds cold, which is another way to draw blood. Just so you don't go into heart deficiency, because that you get palpitations. That could be scary, because that can happen in diabetic situations. And I do suggest CoQ10 as well for those cases.